welcome to tonight's virtual class, Introduction to Boating. We're going to be talking about just the basics to get you started in your boat this summer. So let's get the ball rolling. Seth, why don't you introduce yourself and tell them a little bit about what you do and all that good stuff.
All right, man. Thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me here. So I'm Seth Snow. I'm a boating officer for the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency. I do a little bit of everything, but that just means that my primary role was covering our lakes and rivers, and patrolling and just making sure boaters are out there being safe. I live in Hardin County, Tennessee, in Savannah. So my main focus in my area is Pickwick Lake and the Tennessee River. I cover about 100 miles of the river. So if you are anywhere on the Tennessee River from I-40 south to Pickwick Lake, there's a good chance that you might see me out and about. So appreciate you having me on tonight, and I look forward to it.
Oh, so a little overview of what we're going to talk about tonight. First and foremost, I got some emails about this. This is not the Tennessee Boater Education Course. If you were born after 1989, you are required to get that boater's education course. It's just like the same as your driver getting your driver's course. So this is provided through TWRA, and if you go back to that email that I sent when we were announcing this virtual class, you can get all the information about the upcoming boater education courses and kind of all the study guides, anything you need on that through that email. Other than that, we're going to cover equipment that's needed to safely boat. We're going to play you a little video about launching and loading your boat and answer any questions around that. And then Seth's going to also talk about operating your vessel safely. All right, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right, cool. Sounds good. So first thing you need before you start your journey out on your boat this year is the most important thing. And any officer that you're going to see out there, the first thing we're going to check is to make sure that you have enough personal flotation devices on board, simply life jackets. So there's a few different types of life jackets. The main types that you're going to see are the type 1s, the type 2s, and the type 3s. I'll cover those three first. So you want to have one for every person on board. So a type 1 life jacket is more of like an offshore life jacket. If you've ever been on a cruise, this is what they'll have. They have reflectors on them. There's a lot more flotation than a type 2, but a type 2 also counts. A type 2 is what we like to call an orange horse collar. You can buy these in a 5-pack at Walmart for about 25 bucks. Just as long as they are Coast Guard approved, they are good. And a type 3 life jacket is more of like a ski vest. A lot of folks wear these that wakeboard, wake surf, tube, on jet skis, that sort of thing. So, one for every person on board, unless they are 12 and under. Now, if the child is 12 and under and the boat is are underway, so that means if you're not anchored or aground, that child has to have a life jacket on, 12 and under. Okay. So if we have any questions on that, y'all just pop them in down there at the bottom. Type 4 life jacket is what we call a ring buoy or a square throw cushion. If your boat is 16 foot or greater, you have to have one of these on board, and this is for rendering aid. So if someone falls out of the boat, or if you pull up on somebody who is needing assistance, you can. I like to say that you can throw these like a frisbee versus say if you tried to throw a type 2 at somebody needing assistance, it won't go very far in the wind. But if you throw a square throw cushion at somebody, you can really sling it out there to them and get help for them. And so then a type 5 life jacket. A type 5 life jacket is considered a specialty life jacket. What we mostly see now are what are called inflatables. They have a CO2 cartridge in them, and when you go into the water, it automatically inflates and fills up around you and will float you. The thing about these is they're not approved for anyone under 16 years of age. So be sure that your child isn't wearing one of these. And a type 5 has to be worn in order for it to count. So let's say we've got 4 people on board our vessel. We can have 4 type 2s, 4 type 3s, or a combination of a type 1, type 2, or type 3, just as long as we have 4. But if we have 4 type 5s, they have to be worn in order for them to count. They can't be in your compartment. So just look on that label. If you'll open up the life jacket, you'll see that U.S. Coast Guard approved label, and it will tell you what type of life jacket it is. And just make sure that it fits the wearer, proper weight and chest size. An adult life jacket isn't going to work for a 45-pound child. So just be sure that life jacket fits you properly. And man, just make sure they are in good and serviceable condition. That's one thing that we look for always, readily accessible and in good and serviceable condition. No tears, and can get to them quickly, because when you need them most is when things usually go bad. So if you have any questions on that, just pop them in. But man, I think we're good on that one, Chris. If you got anything to add, please feel free to interject yourself. So this right here is
The
a
only,
scene.
the only thing I had to add, Seth, is you said you can throw them like a frisbee, and I'm just not sure if any of my friends are going to be practiced enough. I might need to start putting them through some drills to
Right,
throw
right.
them things.
Well, hopefully you don't ever find yourself in that situation. Man,
That's right.
it's better to have it than to not. So this right here is a scene that unfortunately I've pulled up to many, many times. A vessel has a fuel leak. Vapors have got built up in the bilge, and for some reason a spark has occurred, and that vessel is caught on fire. So every vessel is required to carry a fire extinguisher. Has to be a Type B fire extinguisher. So uh, if you have a boat, I say every vessel. Let me correct myself. I apologize about that. If you have, let's say, a John boat and it doesn't have any compartments, and your fuel tank can be removed from the vessel and thrown in the water, you don't have to have a fire extinguisher. But if your vessel has any compartments, any closed compartments, mounted a mounted gas tank in it, then you have to have a fire extinguisher. So what I always tell everybody is the best thing to do is just get one anyways, a Type B fire extinguisher, and that'll cover you. And that's also one thing that we're going to check for as well. So we're going to check for life jackets, and we're going to check for a fire extinguisher. And we don't ever want to find ourselves in that situation, but if you do, you want to be prepared. What this gentleman has on his wrist right here is what we call a kill switch, or an engine cutoff switch. If you're operating a PWC, you have to have this attached to your person at all times. This right here isn't a PWC, but it's still a good thing to have attached to you. And so what it does is, if you happen to be ejected overboard or fall into the vessel, let's say you hit a large wave, unfortunately you were ejected, you have this attached to you, and it will cut that engine off, and your boat won't take off from you. We see a lot of times this on smaller boats. Folks aren't wearing these, smaller John boats, and they get ejected. And what that vessel will do is what we call the circle of death. The way that propeller is turning, it'll turn that motor, and the vessel will begin to do circles out in the water. And so that's never something we want to see. And wearing an engine cutoff switch would allow that not to happen. So we like to see those. Not necessarily required, but man, it's a great thing to have on. Unless you're on a PWC, and then a personal watercraft, a jet ski, and then you have to have that attached to you.
Yeah, and I just can't stress that enough. The way I look at a kill switch like that, if I'm going down the middle of the river channel and I'm 200 yards from either bank, and for whatever reason I get thrown out of the boat, there's a big difference in trying to float or swim 200 yards than maybe 20 or 30 yards to get back in my boat. And if you don't have that kill switch where it's going to kill the motor, your boat's going to leave you out there. So,
Absolutely.
that's really, really important. And just to add, a lot of your different life jackets has clips where you can just clip that stuff. So it's almost like buckling your seatbelt. When you put
That's
your life
right.
jacket on, get behind the steering wheel, buckle your kill switch, and then that's just a habit that it's
You
good to get
know,
in.
I use the kill switch as example. I compare it to a seatbelt. Fortunately, I've never really had to use my seatbelt, but every time I get in my vehicle, I still put it on. So,
Yep.
so just some other additional equipment. What you'll see there on the top left is what we call bumpers. They're for the protection of your vessel. If you want to meet some friends out on the lake and tie up, you can stick these bumpers in between you, and it'll keep you from, beating each other's boats to death. The middle there is jumper cables. Man, you just never know. Out listening to music all day, batteries this day and time, they just seem to just fall flat on their face without any warning. So jumper cables are always a great thing to have. Always extra rope, extra anchor rope to tie up to. You just never you may have to be towed. You never know. And then there's some different types of anchors down there. A mushroom anchor is going to be good for a smaller boat, a 14-foot john boat or a canoe or a kayak. They're not going to really hold a larger boat, but a river or a grapnel there, they're made to dig in that substrate in the bottom of the river or the lake, and they'll hold you a little better. The most important little guy on that screen right there is that gold piece, and that is what we call the plug. The plug keeps the water out of your boat, and if you get any water in your boat, when you take it out of the water, you can pull your plug and drain that water out. Just always remember, double check that plug to make sure it's in. Every time my wife and I take our boat out, as I'm backing it down the ramp, she'll look at me and say, "Did you put the plug in?" And I'll say, "Yes, ma'am." She says, "I know it drives you crazy, but I gotta ask every time." So, uh, just be sure you put that plug in that boat. And just some spare tools, wrenches, pliers, screwdrivers. You never know when you might have to make an on-the-fly repair. So, these boats are just like cars. A lot of them have car motors in them, and man, they can break down just like your vehicle going down the road. So you want to be prepared as you can in case something happens.
Seth, we got a pretty good question here that we probably can address now, and it goes
Okay.
kind of back to the life jackets. Joseph asked, said, I have a few Type 5 jackets. Two of them, I cannot tell if the CO2 cartridges are charged without setting them off. Do you have any advice for checking those Type 5s? And I know, and to add to that, I know that there's some expirations or maybe something like that on some
There,
of those.
there
Can you
are
elaborate
so
on that?
So a lot of the ones that I have seen, it sounds like he may have some older ones that don't have a gauge on them. Some of the newer ones now, the ones we wear actually have a small light and it's green. And when it goes red, that means that it's no longer good. I believe the recommendation is actually to replace those CO2 cartridges every year. But check on it, Joseph, and see if there is an expiration date. But man, if there's ever any doubt, just get you a new CO2 cartridge and stick it in there. Because the last thing you want to do is go in the water and need that thing to go off, and that CO2 cartridge has been expired, and it doesn't set that jacket off.
Yeah,
So.
I'm kind of in the
And
same
I know
boat.
some of the ones, I'm thinking back 6, 8 years ago, they have a little small white peel in them that when it gets wet, it'll set that CO2 cartridge off. The ones we wear for work are what's called hydrostatic, so they can get wet all they want to, and they won't go off. So like today, we were out training cadets in the rain, had no worry that it would go off. But if you go in the water, the pressure of the water actually sets that life jacket off. So yeah, Joseph, I would just, man, I wouldn't trust them. I would probably get those CO2 cartridges replaced. Man, I really like to wear an inherently buoyant, which means that it's going to float me no matter what, especially in the winter time. But man, those Type 5 inflatables definitely are comfortable. So
All right, Seth, I'll give you a little break.
yes, sir.
I want to talk to you guys about ways you can find different boat launches and marinas. You can get your fishing regulations. And this is the TWRA on the go app. You can either go straight to the website, Go Outdoors website, or go to the TWRA app, and then you click the little boating icon down there, and you're going to be able to pick up this real life GIS boating and fishing access sites map. And this is just a little example here. You know, I went to Kentucky Lake. I clicked on the Brody's Landing icon, and it just really quickly gives you a ton of information. It tells you what the parking surfaces consists of, how many parking spaces there are, is it handicap available, the hours that you can access that ramp. And then also you can see there you have the statewide regulations and any reservoir specific reservations right there at your fingertip. So if you're looking for different access points and or you're traveling from to a place that you've never visited before, always just go to that app real quickly. You can click on the reservoir, get all kinds of information. So that's a really good piece of advice. So if you're a new boat owner and maybe you're one of the ones that I've been seeing at the ramp that never got this ramp etiquette talk. Just a few things that you probably need to know, and if you wasn't taught, then you might not know these things. You know, one, especially on a weekend, you know, we got Memorial Day weekend coming up. It's going to be crazy busy out on the water. Tons of people trying to use these boat ramps. You know, be very respectful of everybody's time. And one of the things you can do is completely getting everything ready before you start backing down that ramp. I see it every year. You know, somebody pulls up, they back all the way down to the water's edge, and then they start getting the coolers out of their truck. They're undoing their ramps, they're putting their plugs in, they're doing all these things. And all this can be done up out of the way in the parking lot. Get everything completely ready. If you have somebody with you that's going to help you launch the boat, you can go ahead and let them get inside the boat and kind of get ready to crank it once it comes off the trailer. You know, each boat and trailer is different. All the boats I have, I'm able to go ahead and undo my winch strap from the front of the boat. But if you have rollers, or, you know, in the winter when you're duck hunting, maybe you hunted in below freezing temperatures and there's ice possibly on those runners, you would want to leave your winch hooked to the front of the boat. But in most cases, on a, you know, not a super steep ramp, you can go ahead and even unhook your winch cable, your winch from the front of the boat, and just back into the water and launch. On the next video, we're gonna show you some a way to launch the boat, and we can take questions, you know, around that. Anything you would add to that as far as just etiquette when you're at the boat ramp?
No, I think you hit it pretty good, Chris. Yeah, the biggest thing is, you know, we've got a busy weekend coming up. A lot of folks don't run their boats until Memorial Day weekend comes around. You know, just if you have a boat, man, try to take it out the weekend before or the weekday. If you're not that proficient at backing down the ramp, you know, maybe just practice it a couple of times. But the biggest thing is, you know, just get your boat ready to launch. You know, at the top of the ramp, and then when you circle around and back down, it doesn't take you but just a minute to unload. And then it's the same for loading back up. You know, put your boat on the trailer, and then you just pull it up to the top of the ramp and prepare your boat and your truck for heading back home. So that's one of the biggest things I see during a busy holiday weekend is, you know, folks getting a little irritated, taking a little longer than should. And, you know, it's understandable, but just maybe go out and practice with it and see how you can do.
Yep. All right, guys, I'm going to play you a little video about launching your boat. Hopefully
Turn the battery on and put the plug in.
Oops.
It's a common courtesy to be prepared when you get to the boat ramp so you don't hold other people up. Also, if there are multiple lanes, be careful to stay in your lane so you don't hog up the entire ramp. When you're ready to drop your boat, leave the bow hook connected until the boat is fully in the water, or else you risk the boat sliding off the trailer. As you guide your trailer into the water, make sure you stop at the right depth. Because every ramp and trailer are a little different, the easy rule of thumb is to back your trailer in the water until you see the boat just to start to float off. Disconnect the bow hook before pulling away. You should never have to forcefully power the boat on or off the trailer. When you're ready to put your boat back on the trailer, approach slowly, taking the boat in and out of gear so you can line up correctly. It helps to aim the nose of the boat towards the strap for the bow hook. However, if there are wind and or current factors, note that the angle of which you approach the trailer will be different. If you end up crooked, turn around and try again. It's better to take a little extra time than trying to self-correct by powering the boat on the trailer and risking damage. If you find your trailer is not far enough in the water, do not force the boat on. Connect your bow hook and hand crank the boat into place. Now that you have the boat on the trailer and the bow hook is connected, pull the boat out of the water, replace the transom straps, take out the plug, put the cover on, and do anything else you need to get road ready.
All right, yeah, I looked through a few different videos, and this seemed to be the simplest and most advice in a short
Man,
period of time.
that's a good video right there. It's just quick and simple, and man, that's perfect. I really like that one.
So we can take any questions up until this point on ramp etiquette, launching your boat, finding access points, anything like that. And then Joseph, we ain't forgot about your question. A lot of the stuff that you asked will be covered, I know, later in the PowerPoint.
All right, man, I appreciate it. So this is what we call our registration decal or our boating registration decal. It's just like a registration decal on your vehicle. Your vessels have to be registered. So how we display those is with that registration decal, either before or after those numbers. Those numbers will be assigned by the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency. And you begin with TN. And you must have a hyphen or a space in between the letters and the numbers. So for this example, it's TN 3717 and then another space and then ZW. Be sure that these numbers and letters are contrasting color. So if you have a black boat, white numbers. If you have a white boat, black numbers are good. Just so they need to be visible. Chris, what's the next slide? I've done forgot. What's after that? Oh, nope. Okay, go back and I'll talk about it. All right, so let's talk about how we get this registration decal. So if you buy a new boat, a lot of times the dealer will take care of this for you. And you'll pay your registration fee there at the dealer and they'll send it off for you. And TWRA will send it to you in the mail. Let's imagine that we buy a boat from a friend or seems like this day and time it's Facebook Marketplace. If you buy a boat from a buddy or Facebook Marketplace, what you're going to want to do is get a bill of sale. When you get that bill of sale from them, you have to go to your local county clerk's office and pay the taxes on the boat that you just bought. Once you do that, they'll fill out all the information for you and they'll give you a copy. They'll give you a white copy and a yellow copy, and that's for your registration. You'll send the white copy off to TWRA with your payment. You can either do 1, 2, or 3 years, and you'll keep that yellow copy as a receipt until your validation decal comes into the mail. And so that essentially puts that vessel into your name, and they'll send it to you in the mail, and you can stick it on there. So I get a lot of questions that folks ask me, man, I bought this boat and it's got a 26 registration on it. Can I run on that registration until it expires? And the answer to that is no. It's just like if you go buy a vehicle from somebody, you can't run on their tag anymore. You've bought that vehicle, you've purchased that vehicle, you have to transfer a tag over to that. And so it's the same with a boat. Once you buy a boat, you have to transfer those numbers into your name. And so that's I wanted to cover that a little bit. If you already have a boat and you need to renew your boat registration, TWRA on the Go app, Go Outdoors app is great. Man, you can just scroll over to boating and hit renew your boat registration. You just simply type in your name and a little bit of characters to get your information, and man, you can hit renew boat registration right there and it'll pop right up and cover you. And it's very simple. You just put a card in there, and in about a week or so, they'll send you your registration decal in the mail, and you just slap that 26 on top of that 21 there, and you're good to go. So this is what we call a capacity plate. This is put out by the manufacturer and U.S. Coast Guard. It's just, it tells you the safe number of people or weight that you can carry on a boat. Chris, I want to apologize for it getting dark on me. Like I said earlier, I'm at the Tennessee Wildlife Officers Training Academy, and so I've hopped in my truck here, and it's getting dark on me outside, so it kind of looks like I've got a spotlight on me. But we'll get back to the capacity plate. So if you look on where your driver's seat is, a lot of times this will be right around your helm. And this just tells you how many people you can safely carry or how much weight you can carry. And it also tells you the horsepower of your motor that you can safely attach to this boat. So for this instance, this boat can safely carry 7 people. Now that doesn't mean that if you have 8 people on board that we're going to seek you out and write you a big old fine. No, we're not going to do that. But let's say you have 12 people on this vessel and there's this much of the boat sticking out from the water. We call that what's called reckless operation. And yeah, you may get stopped and, you may receive a citation. So, just be cognizant of that. You don't want to overload your boat. It makes it difficult to turn, to stop, to steer. So just look at that capacity plate and, abide by it. Just some terminology for your vessel if you want to impress your friends. So the front of the boat is always called the bow. I always say you bow to the crowd. So if you're standing up on a stage and you bow forward to the crowd, you're bowing forward. The back of the boat is called the stern. The left side of the boat is the port, and the right side of the boat is the starboard. I see a cleat there. Cleat is just simply for tying your boat off to your buddies or to the dock. The hull, Hull, the hull is just simply the body of the boat. And then you have your red and green side lights and your all-around white light. And I'm not sure if we have a side on lights, Chris, but I'm going to talk about those really quick. Oh, we do. Money. So your lights, they have to come on at sunset, and you can turn them off at sunrise. So sunset changes every day. Most everybody has smartphones now. I actually have it on my Apple Watch to where it shows me what the sunset is every day. It changes. And sunset isn't necessarily dark at all times. If it's a bright, sunny summer day, sunset, it may still be fairly daylight. But by law, you have to turn your lights on at sunset. And so your all-around white light on the back, it has to be seen from 360 degrees. And your side lights are red on the left and green on the right. And so when you're out on the water and if you see a red and a green and a white light, you're meeting a boat head on. If you see a red and a white light, you're meeting a boat to their left, and vice versa for green and white. You're coming to that boat to their right. So, just a real quick what those lights mean. So here's Joseph's question. These channel markers. So these are what we call channel markers. They're red and they're green, and they mark what's called the narrow channel. It's the place where you can safely operate your boat. It's the deepest part of the river. And so, Joseph, your question was wanting to know which side to stay on when you're operating your boat. And so there's a phrase that we use, and it's called red right returning. And it's going to be a little hard to explain just without using my hands and showing a picture. But let's imagine you're on the river and you float downstream. So you start at one ramp and you float downstream, and you want to return back to that ramp that you launched from. Returning means that you are going upriver. When you are returning upriver, you want to keep that red buoy on your right. So red right returning. So I hope that makes sense for you, Joseph. If you're going downriver, you want to keep your green buoy on your right side and your red buoy would be on your left. So when you just remember when you're going upriver, red buoy on your right, and you should be safe every time. Now that doesn't mean that these buoys don't get moved around and that sort of thing, but generally they should be in the right spot and you should be good to go there. These are what we call just some non-lateral markers, orange and white buoys. You may see them out there floating on your waters. An orange square is just simply an information buoy. It tells you there's some fuel this way, food that way, that sort of thing. An orange diamond just means that there's a hazard in the water. It does not mean that you can't go in there. It just simply means that, hey, there's something in the water here. Be careful. You may want to slow down. You may want to take your time, or you may end up knocking your boat motor off the back of it. The orange circle is a no wake buoy. So if you don't know what wake is the waves created by your boat. And so essentially no wake means idle speed. And so when you come into a cove or an area where you see these buoys or a sign that says no wake, you're going to want to slow down to just simply an idle speed, which just means your boat's in gear and you're idling and you're not creating those waves, because ultimately, as boat operators, we are responsible for that wake that we create. And so we want to be cognizant of that, and we don't want to cause any damage to anybody's vessel or, knock somebody out of their boat. So just be aware of that. So when you get to that sign, you want to be at an idle speed. And then a diamond with a cross is, a keep out. You can't actually operate your vessel in this area. So, for example, would be a swim area or a construction area. You can't go in behind that buoy.
Good stuff. We got a couple questions here.
Okay. Let's see what we got.
And I can try to tackle the first two. So Timothy and David. Timothy and David both asked about launching your boat by yourself. And I fish a lot by myself. It really depends on the type of boat you got, the type of ramp you're putting in, but I can give you a couple scenarios. The way I was taught, especially with like an aluminum boat, that you don't mind pulling up onto the shore or the ramp, and don't mind getting a little scratch on it. I keep a rope long enough that I can push my boat off the trailer, hold on to the end of the rope. Once it comes around the runner on my trailer, then I can retrieve that boat in. From there, either I can get in the boat and I can, motor out and maybe tie to a dock, or I can just pull it up beside the ramp, park my truck, and then come back down there and get in the boat. If you've got a bigger fiberglass boat, you're probably not going to want to do that. I have a bass boat, and normally I'm going to back in, and basically at that point where that guy undone his hook from the front, I would then kind of give a little nudge, get in the boat, use my motor to get me out to the dock, tie off to the dock, walk the dock back to the truck, and then park it. On a busy weekend, I really do not recommend launching by yourself on these busy ramps. I mean, it is very painful to do when you're by yourself, but you can't help it if you don't have somebody with you to back you in or to back them in. Anything to add on that?
Man, yeah, that's about all I got. Just, back it in till your boat's just barely floating, and then just, tie it off to the dock, or, if it's a aluminum boat and you can pull it up to the bank. A lot of these bass boats now have power poles and keel guards. You can just pull them up and, go park your truck and then walk back down there. You want me to rock on with a couple of these questions?
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
So Beth asked, do kayaks need registration numbers? And they do not, as long as you are paddling it. If you attach a trolling motor to it or a small motor, then yes, then it needs registration. But as long as you are paddling a vessel, it does not have to have registration numbers. There was one, Chris, that said, I think I've lost it. It was a question that they had recently bought a boat in Kentucky and then needed to Oh, I guess it's on answered. I can go to there. Recently bought a boat in Kentucky. I bought a Kentucky registered boat. Do I need to take all the numbers off or just keep the numbers and stick on the Tennessee year sticker? So if you buy a boat out of state, they will, once you pay the taxes on it and send your registration off, Tennessee will issue you new numbers. And so you're going to want to look at that Tennessee registration sticker decal that they sent you. And yeah, you'll have to take those Kentucky numbers off and register it into Tennessee, David. Let's see here. My son stores his 15-foot boat registered in Illinois here in high school at my house. Can I take it out or use it here during the 6 months? No, Joseph, he's okay. As long as your son lives in Illinois and, it needs to be registered in his primary primary waters of use. But it sounds like, 6 months out of the year, the primary use is Illinois. So as long as you have his registration card with you, you'll be good to go. Tiffany, yes. So life jackets are required for a kayak and or a paddle board. So any paddle sports, you have to have a life jacket on. That doesn't mean you have to wear it, but it's a good idea to wear it. And but yeah, you definitely have to have one on board. So if our trollboat fishing kayak is registered in Mississippi, yeah, as long as your vessel is registered to the state that you live in, its primary use, you can, it's just like a vehicle. You can drive it across state lines. So you're good to use your boat there. And so a paddle is not actually required, Joseph. You don't have to have a paddle. Heck of an idea to have one, in case you ever need it, but no, it's not required.
Yeah, if you run motors like I do, you're probably gonna need a
Yeah.
paddle.
Yeah. Been there, done that. Cool. Man, good questions.
Yeah, it is. Yep, very interactive. Well, all right, guys. I know Seth has got to get back to his instructing, so we're gonna wind it down. I want to hit you guys with the post-knowledge check-in. Let's see, and then we'll wrap up. I don't think my quiz was very, very tough from the get-go, but
Hey,
at least we're getting them all 100% now.
that's all that matters.
So each boat should have at least one personal flotation device per person, and then you can find boat ramps near you by visiting the TWRA On The Go app or Go Outdoors. So good job on that. All right, guys. So if you feel inclined to donate and help the cause of the virtual classes, we got these free. That money would go towards advertising and just kind of putting new ideas out there. You can see the list of the virtual classes we have coming, tnwf.org/virtual. If you don't already, follow us on social media. And Seth, man, this is about the third time we've done this, and this was a very interactive group. I really appreciate you taking the time.
It gets better every time we do it. Dude.
Yeah, I appreciate you. I know you're busy just like everybody else, and I really appreciate you taking and huddling down in your truck and knocking this out with me. So.
Man, ain't no doubt it's starting to storm here again. It seems like it's rained all day today. We had to dodge the storms today while we were doing our training, and I'll be darned if it's not fixing to do it again. So y'all be safe out there. I appreciate everyone joining in, man. It's been fun, and I appreciate you, Chris, for letting me join in with you guys.
All right, buddy. We'll talk.
All right, man.